It's the summer of football, or soccer to some of you, but we're making sure you do not forget about Giants football. So in today's episode of Blue Rush, we're going to talk about the major storylines of the summer for the Giants going into July's training camp, which kicks off down in West Virginia. Let's bring in our Giants beat writer for the Post, my co-host, the man, the coolest man on the beat, Paul Schwartz. Patrick Ricard, you are writing about him today, Thursday, as we speak. It's going to be out in today's New York Post. You got an article on Juggernaut, Patrick Ricard, Pancake Pat, whatever you want to call him, Paul. I think he is the Giants' key acquisition this free agency in terms of helping this run game and easing a lot of things on Jaxson Dart, Cam Scatterboo, and Tyrone Tracy. What is it? And I know we haven't seen the right sample size because they're only in, pajamas, helmets. But what is it about Patrick Ricard that has stood out to you so far in that signing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They didn't add running backs, right? They added a right guard in CC Maui-Noa, and they added a fullback. So that's what they hope will be improvements to the run game. Well, it's interesting. You've been around the locker room a lot. Do you think that Chris Manhertz is a big guy?
Yes. Really big
When you
guy.
look at him, right? That's a big dude, right? He's like, what, 6'3", 6'4"? Okay. So he's the same height, I think, as Patrick Ricard, okay? He's listed at 235. I'm like, but Manhertz is a big guy. Ricard is listed as 300 pounds.
Yep.
Bigger guy, right? Bigger guy. We had an availability a couple of weeks ago with the assistant coaches. I was talking to Willie Taggart, the running backs coach, and I asked him something about Patrick Ricard, and then I kind of hesitated, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, "Is he in your room?" And he said, "No." he's in the tight end room. He's not in the running back room. And I said, "Oh yeah, Patrick Ricard is really not a running back. He's got 11 rushing attempts in 9 years. He's really a tight end." So, look, this was the most obvious and predictable signing after John Harbaugh was hired, right? He's going to get his fullback who spent the last 9 years with him in Baltimore. He's going to bring him to the Giants. Most teams don't have a guy who's a classic fullback. They have an H-back or a tight end like Chris Manhertz, who's also a blocker, who kind of is a move tight end who will block for you. But Ricard is a out-and-out fullback. He's big. And you're right. We can't see them, walking around in shorts and T-shirts in OTAs. There's no sense of the physicality of that he will bring. The first 3 or 4 days in training camp, we'll get a little taste of it. Once the pads come on, we'll get a big taste of it. We'll get a whole meal to see that. And I'm very excited to see him because we know, he's got 40-something receptions in his career. He doesn't carry the ball. He says he likes to do it, but, he's just not going to do it very often. Maybe a little bit on 3rd and 1, maybe, as the up back, they'll give him the ball, maybe. They didn't do that a lot in Baltimore. When you have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, even Patrick Ricard said, I can't complain. They're all better than me at this stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, aren't you interested in seeing? And also, Greg Roman is here. Greg Roman, handled the running, the running situation, as a run game coordinator type thing in Baltimore. He's here now with the Giants, so it meshes very well together. And the Giants want to run the ball, and Patrick Ricard is a guy who specializes in letting others run the ball.
Here's the thing, Paul. I didn't need to see any physicality this spring when it came to him. We have, 8 years of him being a 6-time All-Pro, making the Pro Bowl multiple times. I did a breakdown on him when they signed him, and you just saw whether it was linebackers or safeties or corners, you saw business decisions being made when he's clearing the way for guys like Derrick Henry and some of the other guys in that Ravens backfield. What impressed me this spring was not the physicality, because we didn't get to see it. It was the finesse. It was the way I got to see 6'3", 300-something plus move in space, move through holes, guide, Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Cam Scatterboo with that practice we saw Scat out there. You saw the way Scat was able to put his hand on Ricard's back and then Ricard get up to the second and even third level and run run with those linebackers. So it takes me back to 2007 when, the Giants, when we were able to go and grab Madison Hedgecock, and just think about what he did for Earth, Wind, and Fire and that running back room. Well, this is Madison Hedgecock 12.0. Like, the iPhone updates, how if you don't
Yeah.
update your iPhone, it messes up. If my iPhone wouldn't work right now if I didn't have the Patrick Ricard update and be able to do the things that you could be able to do and with him in that backfield. And like you said, he can catch the football. Madison Hedgecock could catch, but they didn't target him. You saw a lot of the play action leaking tight ends to the flat, having Isaiah Likely and the tight ends running crossing routes, deep overs. But then there's also that element on a third and short or a third and mid, leaking that fullback out to the flat as well. And he's a guy that can catch it, get upfield, and get that first down for you. So I think that is going to be, I love the Likely signing, but I think the Patrick Ricard signing is what's going to bridge the passing game and the running game together, because they have to be able to run the football to ease up on Jaxson Dart until we find what we have with the wide receiver room until Malik Nabers gets back.
Yeah, I mean, look, in training camp, once they put the pads on, it's going, watching him. And what did they do in the inside linebacker, right? They got much bigger with Arvell
Mm-hmm.
Reese and Tremaine Edmonds. So that's going to be fun, right? That's going to be fun seeing, the clash of titans kind of thing when he's paving the way and those big linebackers. That will be worth watching. Tyrone Tracy, I talked to him at the Brian Burns softball game, which probably still recovering from as far as your larynx and your voice box, right? From hyping up the crowd. And he said, Tyrone Tracy said, I told him, you do what you do, and I'm going to make you right. I'm
Yep.
going to do my best to make sure you look good because you're 300 pounds. I know a lot of dudes aren't going to want to block you,
Yep.
and are not going to want to be blocked by you. He said, I told Pat, me and you are going to make each other a lot of money. We'll see. Patrick Ricard was signed. He's already the highest paid pure fullback in the league. That's what John Harbaugh thinks of him. So yeah, this is something I would think. Tracy and Scadaboo's a big dude too. He's a power back. You have Ricard and you have Scadaboo. Fun, fun stuff. Subtle but fun stuff.
I hate what I'm about to say, but because you have that running back room that you just mentioned, when they go to team run and they break up and go 7-on-7s and they're doing team run on another field, I'm actually going to pay attention to team run now because I want to see Ricard on an ISO block with Arvell Reese. I want to see him go up against Tremaine Edmonds. I watch for a couple plays, but then I have to turn and look at 7-on-7s because we have to see what this wide receiver room can look like without Malik Nabers. And when we're talking about the topics, you said he must return to full health in top form. But by when, Paul? When do you need to see? I mean, obviously, week 1, we would love to see him there. But for you, when do you start hitting the panic button if you don't see him out there at practice full go?
Well, my point was, and I wrote about that in the post. It was on our website. I think it's at the top of the NFL website right now. Is that they have some nice weapons. They added some things. They had some guys coming back. They signed the 3 veterans, right? Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham Jr., Braxton Berrios. We'll see what happens with those guys. They signed Darnell Mooney and Calvin Austin. They have Darius Slayton coming back. So I'd say, likely a tight end, but he's going to be catching the ball a lot. Theo Johnson's there. They have, I think, a collection of nice targets, but there's nobody there that keeps a defensive coordinator up at night, in my view, right now. So for this passing game to be to cross that threshold to oh damn, this is something really special with Jaxson Dart's development, it's got to be Malik Nabers. He is the superstar potentially of this group. He's the guy that's going to command doubles and things like that, and have safeties looking over the top every time and lurking and saying we can't let him ISO'd with a cornerback. So as soon as possible, but I fully expect that when we report to the April 29th, the first practice at Greenbrier in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, that Neighbors will not be on the field. Will he be on will he be on PUP? Sure, I would think so. Will he get back at some time in training camp? I would hope so. I'm not sure. Will he play in any preseason games? I doubt it. So to me, if he's not on the field week one against the Cowboys, I don't hit the panic button. But I need to know that he is going to be, he's on a trajectory that if he stays healthy after he comes back, he can play in 14 or 15 games. That's the main thing. They need him. Look, he played 4 games last year, right? He played less than a half with Jaxson Dart as the quarterback. That can't happen. He is the difference maker. He needs to be back in form and in shape and in gear that he's taking off from his rookie season. And what happened last year was just, a blip on his screen. He's if you would ask me right now, you got to list 5 keys players to the season. Would he be 1, 2, or 3? Yes, he would be in my top 3 right now.
Yeah, I would put him at 1. You have to put him at 1 because when we talk about Jaxson Dart stepping into that second year, we look at what Caleb Williams was able to do. You had DJ Moore. You look at a lot of these wide receivers. You look at like a Josh Allen, and when did Josh Allen take that leap? When he got Stephon Diggs. It's peanut butter needs jelly, to make it uncrustable. Like Jaxson Dart is going to need his number 1 wide receiver, and until then, I still have a question mark in that room, and I love it, but it's not a question mark of disrespect. It's a question mark of opportunity. And they basically told you, if you're a young guy in that room, and let's say you're an undrafted guy or one of the young guys, they basically told you what they thought about your chances of getting on the field against Dallas that first game and then going out to LA in that second game. They're basically telling those young guys, like the Bo Collins that's coming back from injuries, Dylan Cambry, who you've got a shot to make the team, but you've got an outside shot. You've got to go take it from one of these vets. Because I don't have time to teach you how to run the route or why you need to be in this spot or how to come back to the football. The only one that gets that grace is Malachi Fields because we traded up to go get him. And you see him getting individual coaching from every offensive coach that's out there. But they brought in those 3 vets because now when we're talking about terminology and picking up the playbook and picking up the X's, the O's, and the Y's, why you have to be somewhere, I don't have to explain the why. All I have to do is tell Odell, hey, remember back when you were here, we ran it like this. I need you in that second window because of this. You're talking to Juju Smith-Schuster, Matt Nagy. They know the same dialect, language. Braxton Berrios, more of a special teams guy, but if something happens to Calvin Austin III, then you're that kind of that joker wide receiver that can do all the jet sweeps and things like this. I can't explain to you why I need you in that spot. You got to already know because of years and reps of experience. So everyone is feeling it when I talk about that, how important it is for that offense to come out firing on game 1 and game 2. So Malik Nabers, like we don't know, and it's not something you want to rush back. But when I talk about Malachi Fields, Paul, I think he's going to get his opportunity early. And I think that wherever they're at, everyone's at working out and all and running their routes, I think Malachi Fields need to be bunked up with Jaxson Dart. Wherever Jaxson Dart is, I would live in his basement if I'm Malachi Fields. I live in the guest house if I could because I need to be caught up because there's going to be a lot expected from him from day one. Outside of Isaiah Likely, Paul, who do you think leads the team in receptions after those first 2 primetime games? Which receiver?
Based on what I saw this spring, Calvin Austin. Right? Did the ball come to him a lot?
A lot.
Right? A
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
He seems very accessible. It's shorter or intermediate routes, slot stuff. I mean, that would be my guess if there's no Malik Nabers. Look, Malik Nabers 2 years ago was targeted, 170 times?
Yeah.
Right? it was too much. It was passing game desperation. I mean, look, if I asked him that, I don't think he would say it was too much. But you know what? He might say, I mean, there were times they were just throwing the ball up to me, and it was, a low percentage. I was gonna make the completion. So spreading the ball around is fine. I have no issue with that. Darius Slayton, we have not seen this spring. He's coming back from sports hernia surgery. They say he'll be fine. He probably will be fine. Um, but it's just wide receivers, right? Malik is the sixth pick in the draft. It's at times as a rookie was like, wow, that's why they picked him.
Yep.
Just tremendous. And you forget. I mean, the gist of my article was you forget. Sometimes you forget because he wasn't here all last year. We didn't really see him with Jaxson Dart at all. So Jaxson Dart was trying to make do with a lesser group. So now you give him one of the best, bright, young receivers in the game with his ability to do improv in the pocket, and Malik Nabers' ability to kind of just get open and just outwork guys and outleap guys and outrun guys. I mean, Malik pretty much has it all as a wide receiver when he's healthy. So it's like I said before, it's not so much, oh my God, he has to be there the first 2 weeks. It's when he gets back, he stays on the field, and then he doesn't have to show it in game one, right? It takes a little, or game two. But for the bulk of the season, he is the wide receiver we think he is.
Yep.
That's what the Giants will need, and that is something we were cheated out of last year. We just didn't see it. Everyone was so excited week 4. Dart makes his first start. They're 0-3, and they beat the undefeated 3-0 Chargers, right?
Yep.
Scadaboo had a big game, and oh, by the way, Malik Nabers goes down with a season-ending injury. It's like that's when the Giants can't have nice things. Yeah. Everyone was thrilled with the win and Jaxson Dart, and now Malik Nabers is out. So you know how it is. When a guy's out, he's out. He doesn't exist.
Yep.
He needs to exist and be their best receiver. That's what he needs to do.
And another thing about that game, remember, he had 2 catches in that opening drive. They went down and scored on that opening drive. And there was one where Jaxson Dart kind of bought a little bit of time. We got to see the mobility on display, and then hit Malik in the second window on a basic route. Malik gets up, does the little dance, and I believe 1 or 2 plays after that, Jaxson Dart scores, gets into the end zone. Everyone was riding a high because you were seeing, you saw what this offense could look like. It's like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this. And then it's like from the movie The Waterboy. Oh no, we suck again. Like, when he went down, and that was the first deflation of the season. A quick mention, I think I have to mention it, and it transitions us into the next topic. Jalin Hyatt looked good throughout the spring as well, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people are going to be in our mentions like, why would you mention him? Jalin Hyatt looked good. Don't count him out. Remember, this is a coaching staff that has came in and took on and has taken on Joe Shane's projects, or Joe Shane's players that people are saying, hey, you drafted Evan Neal in the top 10 overall. He didn't work out. Well, they re-signed him to no guarantee money, but he's still here. Jalin Hyatt, another guy, he's still here. He's making plays in the spring. Another guy drafted in the first round, made some plays his rookie year. Deonte Banks had an interception, ran step for step with some guys throughout the spring. You bring in a Denard Wilson as your new defensive coordinator who has a defensive back background, and is a no-nonsense type guy. Can Deonte Banks be salvaged is what you wrote on the text message. What do you think so far, just from what you've seen from Tay, both on the field and how he's kind of carried himself throughout the course of the spring as well?
I think it's a really, really fascinating scenario, right? That look, you've seen him on the field all the time. Physically perfect, right? 6'2", 200 pounds, can run, is strong, is explosive. Showed some signs with Wink Martindale's defense as a rookie of like, okay, I can see why they drafted him number 1. He's got to clean up some things. He's got ability. Last 2 years have been 0. More zone, less press man coverage, which is what he was drafted to do. But that's not an excuse. I don't think he's been as mature as he needs to be. He hasn't hustled on the field. We've seen blatant examples of him kind of giving up on a play, no good, unacceptable. So, he's one of those guys when John Harbaugh was hired, I'm thinking to myself, does John Harbaugh look at this and say, you know what? I watched that tape. I'm going to make a statement here and cut the guy. You know what I mean? Because that's not what we want. That's not what we're about. And I'm going to say, look, not personal, but that's not the kind of tape that my players put on the field. So we're moving on. Yeah. He could have done that. I mean, he would have needed Joe Schoen to sign off on that. But if he just said, I don't want to coach this guy, then Deonte Banks wouldn't have been here. John Harbaugh didn't say that. John Harbaugh said, yeah, I like the guy coming out as out of Maryland as a first round pick. And now we have our hands on him, and new defensive coordinator, new defensive backs coach, new cornerbacks coach, all trying with him. He doesn't make a lot of money. He's in the last year of his contract. Obviously, they did not pick up his fifth-year option. So I talked to Addison Lynch, the new cornerbacks coach, right? A couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to him alone, and I said, when you look at Deonte Banks, just look at him. Do you see why he was a first-round pick? And Addison Lynch, you would have liked this, Brand. He said one word, 4 syllables, and he stretched them out to sound like a sentence. He said, absolutely. I see why he was a first-round pick. Yeah. And he said, I watched all his tape. Addison Lynch said, he's the first-year cornerbacks coach. And he said, we tried to show him where his consistency was not there. He wasn't consistently lining up fast. He wasn't consistent with his feet. And so we showed him, it's not that you can't do this, it's that you're not consistent. So that's what they've been harping on. And, Addison Lynch said he has all the intangibles. You see in his body, he's big, fast, he can tackle, he can jump, he can catch. You'll like this. This will put a smile on your face. So it's my job to put him in the best positions to be able to bring those intangibles out all the time. Mama and Daddy gave him a lot of skills. So it's my job to make Mama and Daddy's skill set shine on the field on Sundays. We'll see. Does Deonte Banks have it in him, have it in his heart and his mind and his soul to reclaim his career? Physically, he can do it if he stays healthy. There's a lot of competition, right? They got Paulson Adebo. They signed Greg Newsome. They drafted Colton Hood. They still have Drew Phillips. So there's no pathway for him to start. Certainly, can he do it? You can't have too many cornerbacks. I think it's going to be fascinating. I really do. A talented kid who just hasn't worked out. Can this new coaching staff get it in his head? This is your last chance, and you better make it good.
Well, the fact that they sat and they watched those plays and they broke it down and had that type of detail, you wonder if Wink kind of did the same and had the details, had the way that he coached and approached, how he tried to get Tay Banks or get the most out of a Tay Banks. But then you get to a Shane Bowen, you wonder if those details weren't there, because these top-level, top-tier athletes, they want to take their game to another level, Paul. They want to be coached. Well, the great ones want to be coached. They want the detail. Because after a certain point, yeah, you're the best athlete out of Maryland, but now you get to the NFL, everybody can run. Everybody's big, fast, and strong. And he had the success or some sort of success his rookie year. And then you bring in a new coordinator, and then he could be looking at it like, well, what is this guy doing? And you could start comparing him to the D coordinator that wanted you, that drafted you. Well, Wink had me doing this. Shane's doing that. Well, Wink had me wanting to press. Shane has me playing off the ball. And you can start to tell yourself a story. Now you've got an accomplished coaching staff. All of them across the board have credentials that have come in and set you down. And on top of that, they've brought in even more than enough competition to cut you, replace you, sit you down, put you on the practice squad. Now they put the ball in your court. They're saying you got no money, you've got nothing, no equity in this but sweat equity. Your sweat equity is going to either, 1, make the team, 2, get you on the field, 3, stay on the field. How consistent can you be? Because the opportunity is there for you. So that is fascinating. For first-round picks, they get all the opportunities in the world, but this is the opportunity of a lifetime for this guy. This is not like an Eli Apple type opportunity. You got a new coach that had come in, a proven head coach that has come in and is giving you a reprieve or giving you a stay of execution, and you got the defensive coordinator to go with it. That is, I mean, if I was to say Tay Banks leads the team in interceptions this year, what would you say to that? We'll see, right? It's like a we'll see.
No,
All right.
no. I would say that the New York Post needs to make drug testing mandatory. That's what I would say. No, he's not going to lead the team in interceptions. He's not going to. The thing is, you can put him on the team, right? Look, we all know cornerbacks. You need a million of them, right?
Yep,
You need a million of them.
Yep.
And when guys get hurt, nobody gives a damn, right?
Yep.
If one guy goes down,
Yep.
you got to put this guy on the field. Nobody gives a damn. Oh well, they're going to target him right away.
Yep.
Right. They're going to throw at him and throw at him and throw at him. And if you just like, your right tackle goes down and you put some kid in there, they're going to attack him right away. And nobody cares that he didn't practice that position. Nobody cares. They're going to go after you and they're going to maul you. So Deonte Banks doesn't have to start. He has to make the team. We showed, he can do kickoff returns, right? He was pretty good at it last year. He was
really good.
So he can have a role on special teams. Now, he's not going to be on the team because he can be a kick returner. He's just not. He has to be a defensive player. And I don't think he's really a slot guy. I just don't think that's his body type to be a slot guy. So he's an outside corner. So he can be their third or fourth corner. He can be on the team. He doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yep.
He can return some kicks. And you know what? God forbid, maybe once in a while, he's on the team and he's inactive on a game day. Okay, that's what happens sometimes.
Yep.
But if he makes the team and they think he can play, and then he will get a chance to play because that's what happens. Guys get hurt and you get a chance. And if he does and he gets better and better, then either he will stick around next year or he's a free agent at 25 years old, 26 years old, who's healthy and big and strong and fast, and somebody will want him. So it's all there for him. I don't think it's just about, well, the defensive system changed and what could he do about it? I don't think he was mature as he needed to be. And I don't think he looked in the mirror at all times and says, holy, you know what? I've got to pick this up and I can't show that on the field anymore. I just think that's true.
Yep.
So I think it's all there for him. And if he's in the right frame of mind, his body is fine. And if he doesn't make it, no one's going to look at his coaching staff and they say they failed Deonte Banks. That's all there is to it.
If he comes back, has a solid season, that could be potentially one of the best comeback stories. I don't want to say in Giants history, but Giants recent history. It'd be pretty cool to see this kid, kind of grow up and watch him grow up between our eyes and have some sort of success because we've seen it before. Another major storyline of the summer, Jaxson Dart. Not so much what he's doing in terms of political rallies or anything like that, but is he going to be able to protect himself in year two? You got CeCe Mawanoa to kind of shore up that offensive line. You brought in Patrick Ricard, as we talked about, to help a run game that was, top 10 last year, to kind of take a little ease off of him. We talked about Malik Nabers. Can he come back? Can the receivers make some plays for him? We're tired of seeing him do it all on his own. And part of trying to do it all his own, he was trying to be Lamar Jackson last year, running around a little bit too much. And not so much the running aspect of it. We love the way he was able to be a dual threat, but it's at the end of the run, trying to take on linebackers and safeties like you are, Patrick Ricard. Do you think this coaching staff has come in and let Jaxson Dart know how much they need him healthy and on the field?
Well, as you know, Brandon, from being there all the time, they hate this topic, right? Jaxson Dart hates talking about it. Brian Daboll hated talking about it. Mike Kafka, when he took over, did not like talking about it. This is, you could see Dart kind of having smoke out of his ears and saying, have you guys watched me play in high school and in college? This is what I do. I run and what? I shouldn't care enough if it's 3rd and 6 and I know I can get 4 yards. I shouldn't dive and do everything I can to get the first down. This is football. What are you guys talking about? But he spent too much time in a blue tent and he was hurt and he had concussion issues. And it just got to be a yin yang kind of an uncomfortable thing. Now, this coaching staff, I talked a couple of weeks ago, Brian Callahan who's a pretty darn accomplished quarterbacks coach, right? I mean, people did not think that he would come to the Giants to be the quarterbacks
Yeah.
coach,
Yeah.
maybe offensive coordinator. He's been an offensive coordinator in the league. He's been a quarterbacks coach, successful one. Joe Burrow gives him a lot of credit in Cincinnati. And he was the head coach of the Titans for 2 years. And now John Harbaugh hires him not as a coordinator, but as the quarterbacks coach. So Brian Callahan said some really fascinating things about this. And I didn't think of it this way, but tell me after you hear this what you think about this. I think it was a fascinating thing. Now he said all the things that a lot of people have said before. There's got to be an awareness when you put yourself at risk, when to get out of bounds, when to do this. He said you watch them and you watch the things that went on over the course of the year, and you get to the point where, hey, look, it's a 1st and 10. I don't need you to lower your shoulder and try to run through somebody. Just get on the ground or get out of bounds, and we'll move on to the next play.
Boom.
Okay, he said, I never want to take that ability, that running ability, because I asked him, I said, that Jaxson ran a lot last year, and Brian Callahan said yes, and he ran well. So it's not like he didn't run well, and we don't want him to run. Okay, but that's the stuff that you expect. This, Brandon, I thought was really interesting that he said when he looked at it, he said that I think what was really great for Jaxson last year from a toughness perspective is that he proved to all of his teammates and people in the league he's a really tough player, and that there's a time and place, and he's already proved that. So we can move on from that.
Yep.
I never thought of it that way, that he can tell Jaxson, look, we have it on tape. We know you can put your head down and lower your shoulder and get the first down. And nobody on this team last year questioned that. Wow, Jaxson will sell out for us. Okay? You've done that. You don't have to prove it to us anymore. You don't have to prove to the opponents that this dude is a tough guy. So you can still be a tough guy, but you don't have to prove it anymore. You can do it once in a while, but you don't have to prove it, so we can move on from that. I think that probably resonated with Jaxson, and we'll see how that manifests itself on the field. I thought that was a really interesting way for Brian Callahan to bring that out. You proved it. Now we can move on.
I just typed that into my Google Translate, and what I hear in my head was that translated to, hey, be tough, not dumb. Be tough, not dumb. Like you said, you have proved it. It's like back in college. I remember this incident down at UMass where we had this kid who just thought he could get drunk and just fight everybody, had the beer muscles. And it's like we're standing there, we're outside, we're uptown, outside of Antonio's Pizza. And it's like one or two of us, and you're just popping off to like a whole crew. That's not tough, that's dumb. You want us to get jumped because you want to be the cool kid. You're drunk and you can't handle your liquor. Now, football is absolutely different, but basically Brian Callahan just told him, I, along with a lot of people, need you healthy because you're going to make us a lot of money. You're going to make a lot of people a lot of money, and I don't take a quarterback's coaching job to stay here and be a quarterback's coach. No, I'm going to be the guy that's going to get a lot of credit for your development. And on the next cycle of head coaching jobs or offensive coordinator jobs, I'm going to be at the top of the list. They're going to be talking about me on Blue Rush. They're going to be talking about me on NFL Network, on First Take. When I come up for a job, they're going to say, look at Jax. They're going to put the numbers on the board, full screens, graphics. Look at Jaxson Dart's development progression from year 1 to year 2. Who's the quarterback's coach that had hands-on experience on that development and progression? Brian Callahan. And then you get into the meetings, Paul, for maybe what's a head coaching job, OC job. Well, how are you going to work with this young quarterback that's coming, Archie Manning? Or how would you work with this quarterback that's coming up in the draft, or the Kyler Murray or somebody, or Sam Darnold, that quarterback where you need to fix him? Well, this is what I told Jaxson, and this is how I developed Jaxson. Now you get the job. So my next mortgage, Jaxson, where my kids go to school next, whether it's private school, public school, That all falls on you and staying healthy and your development. So be tough, be yourself, be skillful and athletic, do your dances. We love all of it. Just don't be dumb, bro. Just don't be dumb. That's what I
And
got.
you don't
out of
have
that.
to prove it. You don't have to
Don't
prove
have
it.
to
You've
prove
shown
it.
it already.
You
You've
don't
now
have
let
to
me
prove
ask
it.
you something. Was there ever a time when you were in your, first, NFL camps where you thought to yourself, I got to prove something? I mean, I know you had to prove you could play, but prove your toughness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That, you know what, I got to prove to these guys, I'll lay out for them or whatever. I mean, was there an example that you can remember about that?
It was
I
in
got
a
to prove to you.
it was in a practice after training camp when we got back to Giant Stadium. Remember, we used to practice in that field outside of Giant Stadium, and I tried. It was a blocking. It was basically like a run period, but I tried to get physical with Sam Madison because I'm like, okay, it's the last part of camp. I've got to show. And I was struggling on special teams, hitting wedges and all that. So I've got to show that I could be that big body receiver who can step in for a Plaxico Burress or an Amani Toomer. And I tried to get physical with Sam Madison. And I remember he grabbed my face mask and was like, young bleep. It's like, don't you ever. And then like all the DBs came over, Jabril Wilson and all those dudes came and tried to like swarm up on me. But to me, that was my moment. Wrong person because Mad Dog was a vet and maybe I should have picked somebody else, that maybe like Kevin Dockery or maybe Aaron Ross or something, but you picked the wrong guy. But I had to try and show that, let me get physical on here. But that's the vet trying to just be smooth with it, go tag off on a guy. Let's just get through practice. Let's get to the season. Who is this young guy being? Yes, yep.
And you're trying to make the team.
Yes,
I'm on the team.
I'm on the team. Absolutely.
And I'm checking off this practice and I'm doing my thing. And I don't need, this. But do you think Sam Madison respected you after that a little bit, or did he think you were a jerk?
I think I don't necessarily say it was more like a respect thing. I think he pulled me to the side and was just like, I get what you're doing. Like, I get it.
So
But young boy,
respect.
you got to learn how to practice. Like, you got to learn how to practice. So from there on out, it was, because he knew I had to do a job, it was grab on and look like we were blocking, look like I was being physical, but just enough to be like, all right, you touch me, but don't touch me too much. Like, ease up off me because I got to get ready for a season. So that was, and the DBs, they respected me and all after that, because they knew, after that, they knew B. London was going to run. B. London was going to give 100%. Right. And then, so it was that we came to that mutual understanding for that. But that's one thing. That's trying to make the team. This is trying to make a season. This is trying to get a franchise out of the funk, out of the mud. We need you, bro. So be tough. Don't be dumb. You are this team's Jalen Brunson, and that transitions us into the next thing, Paul. Final thought, because I call it the summer of football. We got World Cup. Everyone's still riding this high of this Knicks craze. 53 years this team, it took for them to win a championship. And you saw Cam Scatterboo courtside on the Jumbotron when they're like, who's in the house tonight? I said, who's in the house tonight? And they put him up on Celebrity Row. We saw Jaxson Dart and his girlfriend and Brian Burns get on a jet and fly down to San Antonio for the finals. That's got to be infectious for this team. Somehow, some way, this Knicks run has to be able to play into whether the Giants can put a run together this year. Would you agree with that? Do you think this team can take anything away from what the Knicks just did?
Also, John Harbaugh, first-year coach, and in with the Giants, and Mike Brown, first-year coach with the Knicks, right?
Yeah,
got a little something there. Look, I think whenever we haven't had many championships in the New York, New Jersey area. We haven't, but anytime you do, then it leaks over to the other teams, and people say, "Oh, well, what can they learn from that? What can they?" Well, you're probably going to learn teamwork and sacrifice and clutch play and all those things. Look, the Knicks had that, in abundance, obviously, all that stuff. I think the main thing that these players on the Giants and other teams can see from the Knicks is that, wow, that's what happens when you win in this town. Holy smokes. It is insane. You can win other places, but you win in New York. That ticker tape parade is not like any other thing. The Garden is not like any other building. Have we seen that at MetLife Stadium? We have not. We've seen it in Giant Stadium. Well, we saw it in MetLife Stadium a little bit, right? And the Giants won a playoff game at MetLife, right? I guess in 2011. So we've seen some of this, but that can you can kind of feel some of that in the other team, and you can say, "Oh, I want this so badly because I see how great it can be." But I thought Brian Burns was really interesting because he went with Jackson, flew off to San Antonio to see a game there. He got that vibe, game one, I guess it was, and what was it, game two? I forget, but one of the games, obviously, the Knicks won both games in San Antonio, the first two games, and Brian Burns was not just like, yeah, we can learn from the Knicks. He said, I really don't know how they handle things, within their own building. Of course, we want to emulate their success because they made it all the way to the big dance. But I can't really speak on the details of what they do or what they went through. And I think that's perfect. That's why Brian Burns is such a great and developing leader, is that, yes, we want what the Knicks have, but I can't say that we should emulate we should be what they are. He said, I don't know what they are. I'm not in their building. I have sense of what they are, and that is right. You don't know. I always say to people, you don't know what goes on inside behind people's closed doors in their home, and you don't know what goes on really inside the closed doors of the team facility. We have an idea, and as reporters, we try to find out as much as we can, but only the Knicks know what worked inside their building so perfectly, with, I'm sure, hiccups along the way. So Brian Burns is saying, yeah, we want what the Knicks have, but we have to do it our way. And I think that's the message. We have to figure out our way as the 2026 Giants to figure it out to get great success. And then we have to implement that plan our way. But look, it was darn exciting, and for the whole city. And I think for players to see that in this city, with the Giants who've had so little success, so much losing, I think that is something, that's a carrot that they can look at and say, wow, that's what happens when you win in this city. I want a piece of that.
You win in this city, regardless if you're Eli Manning, you see where that takes you, or you're a young practice squad player, you get to be on Blue Rush with Paul Schwartz years later, decades later.
And one other thing, I forgot to talk to, I talked to David Tyree after the Knicks won it, because when OG had that tip in, one of the first things a lot of people thought was, you know what, that's the greatest play in New York history, maybe since Tyree's helmet catch, right?
Yes.
I talked to David Tyree about it, and Tyree said, well, I think mine is still number one. And Tyree is a huge Knicks fan. I didn't realize he grew up with a Bomb Squad poster of Trent Tucker and Johnny Newman and Gerald Wilkins. He loved the Knicks back then, loved them. He's a Knick guy. He said, I have loved Kenny Skywalker. Kenny Skywalker, then you're a real Knicks fan, right?
Yes, sir.
He was a first-round pick who was kind of a bust with the Knicks. So, it's also great. He said his favorite player was Charles Oakley as a Knick, and he also liked Anthony Mason. And Tyree, he said, I love me some bullies. I love me some bullies. He liked, that's the kind of player he was, right? He was a little bit of a bully player. And he said, look, when you win in New York, there's nothing like it. That's what OG and the Knicks are going to find out. So that's the message they can impart. The guys, they had Harry Carson and LT, right, come speak to the team. They could certainly talk to these guys about, look, this is what New York and New Jersey demands. And when you win, there's nothing better. That's what David Tyree can tell them. And now that's what the Knicks can show them. Just great stuff for them to try to get some of that success.
All right. They're going to get a chance to try and replicate that success with us being about a month away from training camp, which is down in West Virginia. Paul, we're gonna keep the summer of football, Giants football going. Next week, we're gonna have another episode of Blue Rush. So, guys, write in the comments what you want us to talk about. We may even read some of the comments out next week. Maybe do a mailbag type thing to keep the summer of Giants football going. For Paul Schwartz, I'm Brandon London. Appreciate you guys watching another episode of Blue Rush by the New York Post.